Yeah. All right, folks. Welcome to the show. A double salute for you. You earned it. Welcome to the weekly Spinner Rack. I'm your host, Chris, and this is basically like doing a late night talk show, but about comic books. It's going to have comic book news. It's going to have comic book reviews. I'm going to draw and just talk about comic book related topics and stuff at the end. So there's various segments. If it's your first time, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. And to all the wonderful people in my chat, thank you very much for being there, because this is a one-man show. I don't have a producer, for instance, but you will see, especially if you watch this on demand later throughout the week, the live chat gives me some of my best material. This is going to be a good one, folks. We've got some really interesting news. Who expected Diamond to be back in the news? I didn't. I thought I was done with it, but they're coming back. I've got some really interesting comics to talk about, including the finales of some, big books like DC K.O. and Beneath the Trees, last Rite of Spring, or just Rite of Spring. I'm kind of adding to that. Let me do a few things here. I'm going to add a banner so that you've got an idea of what's coming up, or if you're joining the show because it's live later, you'll see what kind of stuff I've already discussed. And with that said, it is time, as always, we all know, for the opening monologue, right? Yeah, the opening monologue. All right, folks, this week, don't know if you saw this, but this week, Marvel shared some images from a new book. They're doing a new X-Men book. Big surprise there. It's an upcoming new series where the X-Men open up a global school. And they call that X-Men United. Yeah, it's got Magneto as a guidance counselor, which means that for the first time, the metal detectors are afraid of the students. Yeah. So you kind of get a sense of where this is going. That's the base level. Might go up a little, might go down a little. That's the base. Moving forward, there was some other news. That wasn't the only comic book news. Did you think that was it? No, just a few little jokes. DC announced plans to have the eco-terrorist supervillain Poison Ivy become the mayor of Gotham City. Yeah, a supervillain, a scary supervillain, as the mayor of Gotham City. Editors at DC said that they wanted to show kids that read their comics that elected government officials aren't always as scary as what we see in the real world. How am I doing? There's only two more. You can deal with it. This is the show. Collectors are saying that the grading system that are out there, that they've got a shaken confidence in it. There's a lot of discussion going on places like Reddit. So they've really had their confidence shaken in the grading system for comics. And that's too bad, because the goal behind a grading system is trust. Without that, it's just basically a large, expensive sandwich bag. It's just a slab joke. We love our slab jokes. And finally, and then I'll get on to the real news. Don't know if you saw this, but DC shared a bunch of details this past weekend at Emerald City Comic-Con about new books that they're launching for something they're calling their Next Level Initiative. Editors hope to grab fans' interest and attention by doing something new and exciting, launching a bunch of #1 issues. That is something we haven't seen before. Okay. That was me having fun. Hey, it's my show. I'm allowed to do things like that. We can deal with this. Anyway, I'm going to get into actually discussing the news next. So, folks, bear with me. It's time to queue up the news of the week.
We're sitting on top of the story of the century here.
Put an ad on the front page. Cash money for a picture of Spider-Man. He doesn't want to be famous, and I'll make him infamous.
Hi, guys. This is April O'Neil from Channel 6 News, and I am here in beautiful New York City.
right, there we go. And look, let's see if I can duplicate that look. I don't know about this news. What a scandal. Thank you for your patience. Wanted to try something new. Wanted to try something for myself. Gave myself all of 10 minutes to write those. It was a last-minute idea. We've got some great news, though. So let's get into it, starting with what I put in the actual thumbnail. We're going to get right into it. Something strange happened this week, specifically with PSA-graded comics, but also a PSA-graded card. And if you don't know, PSA is a grading company, kind of like CGC. A lot of people know about CGC, or what's the other big one for comics? Something like CBCA or something close to that. Like it's 4 letters. I can't keep them all straight. CSI NCIS, I believe, is the 4th grading company. Anyway, PSA got into grading baseball cards and Pokemon cards and stuff, but now they're getting into comics. And I saw oh, thank you. I appreciate that. This is why I have the live chat here. Thank you, Comic Book Phil. CBCS is what I was trying to come up with. So, a PSA 1.0, on a scale of 1 to theoretically 10. Never get 10, but whatever. A 1.0 Superman #1 sold on Golden Auctions for $176,000 this week, which is an absolutely massive amount of money, considering that there were at one point millions of copies of this out there, but probably not as many now, but whatever. The interesting thing is that there was also a CGC 1.0 Superman #1 that was sold on Heritage Auctions this week, and it only went for $88,000, about half. So what makes both of these being in a 1.0, what makes the Golden Auctions one go for more? Was it PSA or is it Golden? Personally, I think that this might have a little more to do with Golden Auctions, but I will get to explaining some of this a lot more for you folks. Let me just acknowledge this. Thank you. You started Baja Blasting. Hello, troopers. Yes, hello to the comic troopers out there. Rear Admiral Comic Tropes here. Guiding my troopers. Thank you very much for the support, Steve. But tonight I actually am back to coffee. Don't worry, Jean. My sister's in the audience. I drank a lot of water today. So, I love my sweet coffee. Antoni Amedes. All right. So, admittedly, the difference between these two books, and it's not the ones that you see right here, just to be clear. Well, actually, it sort of is. No, I take that back. What you're seeing here on the right-hand side, that's the PSA 1.0. This is not the CGC one that sold this week. The difference is the CGC one was missing a quarter of its cover. So while they're both rated a 1.0, technically the PSA one looks nicer. And that is important. That is important. Okay. But still, what PSA does not note in their 1.0 here is that it is the same exact book as you see here that CGC once graded in the past also as a 1.0. But if you look at the top, CGC explained that this is a restored grade. That is a very important distinction when you're looking at comics. Is this the way it always has been, or has work been done on it? Work was done on this specific comic, and you can tell it's the same comic because if you look at the markings on the spine here, especially this little bit of wear, you can see that it is the exact same wear that you see over here. This is the same book. So at one point, CGC rated it, and they said this was a restored copy. They had some pages trimmed. They probably had some damage, so they trimmed some interior pages, make it look nicer. PSA doesn't say it's restored. They just say it's a 1.0. So I think that that is a little sketchy when it comes to, if you're going to say that it's graded, you have to say a little bit of why it's graded that way or what it is. Restored is different than not restored for people that don't get, graded comics. Meanwhile, separate issue, but also was talked about a lot this week in regards to PSA. They were hired to do something called reholder a Pokemon card. Reholder is when you take it out of the old plastic case, you put it in a new one. Why would you do that? The technology supposedly gets better to protect something, and supposedly the guidelines for verifying the condition are going to be more up to date as time goes on. So you'd want to reholder it because you're authenticating, again, the condition of something. And if it's very rare and very expensive, there's value in that. So this guy had a Pokemon called Deoxys. I don't know anything about Pokemon cards. Not really. But I do know that basically they gave away like 50 of them at a movie years ago. And that was it. 50 worldwide. There's only about 38 of them graded, okay? 38. Very, very rare, very expensive card. PSA was hired to reholder a 10.0, so super rare. A super rare version of this card. Perfect. They damaged it. They damaged it down to a 6.0 when they went to reholder it. Or at least that's what they said. They offered the owner, because of the damage, they offered him $19,000 to make up for the fact that they had damaged his very rare card. Here's why that's a problem. PSA themselves had sold that same card in a 10.0 just a few weeks ago for $45,000. And now they're telling him that they've determined the value to be $19,000. So they're going to sell it for $45,000 and then tell somebody else that it's only worth like 19. That's very sus. And let's get into something that people are talking about. There's no evidence of this, but they're talking about it on Reddit. Is fans are wondering, what are the odds that one grading company had 2 of this super rare card, 38 in the entire world, both rated 10.0, and they had both in their possession at the same time? Or did they sell this 10.0 and just tell the guy that they damaged it? I would have no way of knowing, but you have to admit that the optics are not good. The odds are crazy low. So, regarding the Superman comic, is that a question about golden auctions? Is that a question about how PSA grades their things? I don't know. I'm telling you guys, be careful. If you're getting into the speculating aspect of comics and grading these comics, do your research. Really do your research. Read other people's reviews. Read the latest news stories, because there is some super suspect stuff happening, in my opinion. And right now, comics interest has been growing to an all-time high. We're seeing all these new books like the DC Guide to the Multiverse Milestone comics, White Sky #1 by Image, Dork #1 by Image, Narco #1 by Image, Nectar #1 by Vault, all selling out within a day or two. So there's a lot of speculation going on, and that's fine to some degree. But I want to bring up this news story because I think it's important to keep your eye on who you're using, okay? I just really want to spread the word on that. And there are some people that know, the Pokemon stuff more. There are some really interesting videos out there that really break down just how wild that grading the Pokemon card is. I just came across them after I was researching the Superman #1. I was like, why did one copy sell for $176,000 and then the same, the next day, one sold for $88,000, same grade, but different companies. Anyway, just thought I'd share that. I think it's a pretty wild story. And personally, I don't think I could trust PSA seeing these stories. I don't think I could, but that's your call. That's your call. Yeah. Glad you pre-ordered it. Yeah. Are you rich now? I guess it depends on how fast you sell your copy and whether the interest in it is sustainable. I read digitally the Image comics this week that were selling so well, and I think that Dork is super fun. I think it's really, really cool. I'm surprised at how excited people are over it. I think that there is a speculation element there, but it is a good book. I'll talk more about that during the review section, okay? We'll keep going with some news. Staying with a little bit of Superman news here. This week, One Piece. Even if you don't read it, I think people know what One Piece is because it is definitely one of the most popular manga out there. You know, it's got the live-action Netflix series as well as the ongoing anime. And the manga's been going for a long time. Very, very popular. Very popular. Well, this week, One Piece officially announced that they had passed the mark of 600 million copies in print, which is a very big number. If you don't know, 600 million. That's honestly an unfathomable number. There's nothing we can really relate it to that we could conceptualize on that scale. It's humongous. It's humongous. Well, what does that mean? That means that it now ties with the estimates for how many copies Superman has sold. But, of course, Superman began back in 1938. So it had a bit of a head start on One Piece. And up to now, Superman has always been, overall, the character that has sold the most copies of its title. 600 million. So One Piece has tied it. Obviously, One Piece is super likely to very soon surpass Superman. Very soon going to surpass it. One Piece, if you don't know, by Eiichiro Oda, began in 1997. So almost 60 years after Superman. 59 years. 59 years after Superman, and it's caught up. It's a pretty big deal. It's a pretty big deal. For any comic or manga. I'm going to put this into further context because this is a massive, massive number. Eiichiro Oda is currently the 8th best-selling author of all time. All time. He's right behind J.K. Rowling, and I think we all know that Harry Potter was kind of popular. That was 600 to 650 million copies of Harry Potter. I think that One Piece is probably going to surpass that by the time it ends. And that's just like in new issues. Who knows what it'll be like, 30 years from now or something. Oda is the only Japanese author in the top 10 most published authors, and the second non-English one. I think that there's a French author in there, if I'm remembering right. Anyway, the next manga creator on the list, not too far away, to be fair. Akira Toriyama, number 15. But that's counting everything that they did, these authors. 300 million copies if you add up Dragon Ball, Dr. Slump, the other things he's done. What is it, like Sandland, things like that. Here's a super chat. Did you hear that the creator of One Piece wrote down what the One Piece is and put it at the bottom of the sea as a publicity stunt? No, I've never heard that. I've never heard that. I've heard that Oda-san does know what it will be. I'm excited to see, but we'll see. We will see. I thought that was pretty cool. And you know what? I don't think One Piece will just, next month or something be able to say, we beat Superman. Some articles will say it. Superman's a little harder to estimate the full copies. It's going to be real darn close to 600 million, but there wasn't the same way of tracking published copies for huge chunks of the comic book publishing industry. But it's going to be around 600 million. Huge, 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 huge. And congratulations to One Piece. It's really interesting. Really, really cool. Yeah, Japan does treat comics as a genuine art form. To be clear, though, in my opinion, so do a lot of countries. I think that Spain and France and Italy are all super respectful of comics. Belgium, like a lot of Europe is very, very respectful of comics as an art form. I mean, in France, they call it the 9th art form, right? I think that that's what they call it. as long as I'm talking about manga, this was brought to my attention last week, but there's been some developments. There's a scandal in the world of manga. It's pretty ugly. I'm not going to go into gross detail, but I'm going to give high-level details. Japanese publisher Shogakukan. They own Shueisha, which is Weekly Shonen Jump, among other things. But Shogakukan said that it is going to establish a third-party committee to investigate the company's decisions to publish works by 2 manga authors on the Manga One app, despite knowing that they had past sex crimes. Convictions, even. Gross. So specifically, get into this a little, Shogakukan was found to have hired a manga writer convicted of sexually assaulting a woman under the age of 20. Yuck. The author used the pseudonym Hajime Ichiro and worked on the series Jojin Kamen. I don't know that one. Which has since, of course, been taken off of the Manga One platform. Also, the publisher said Monday that another author, the writer for the series Seiso no Shinrishi, has also been found guilty of indecent assault before the company hired him under his new pen name, Itsuki Yatsunami. Whoa, this is crazy. So, to sort of recap, both authors had previous series under their real names, got convicted of sex crimes, and then Shogakukan hired them under a pseudonym, knowing who they were. And like apparently the first one that I'm talking about here, what was his real name? I guess it didn't tell me. The pseudonym Hajime Ichiro, that one, his editor worked to try to negotiate some sort of plea agreement with the victim. Whew. So, pretty bad. Pretty horrible. So, anyway. Oh, cool. Here's something more positive. Somebody saying they got their copy of Drome. That was my #1 pick for comic last year. Very different, obviously. Oof, no, Mike Manhattan. I did not see that, but I never read that title either. So, all I can say that's any amount of positive, it's more mitigating than anything else, is that it is now in the news and Shogakukan is hiring this independent organization to look into how this happened. Obviously, the goal is going to be not just to stop it from happening again, because, I mean, it puts the publisher at, like, legal risk, but I'm sure that they will be firing some people like editors. I'm sure that they will be. That's the only silver lining I can find. Otherwise, it's really gross. Hope these authors are held accountable for their crimes. They already have been technically, at least as far as Japan's legal system. They are both convicted. They have both either served time or paid restitution. So they have. What's bad is that it happened and then Shogakukan knew who they were and had them work under a pseudonym. So they were like trying to hide what it was. They knew that they had a certain amount of talent and they were just going to sort of exploit them. Gross. Move on. I think I've got some good news in here somewhere. Here's just a silly one, but hold on. I got something on my glasses. Can't really see too well. There we go. That's better. This coffee's really good, by the way. All right, Spider-Man Long Way Home. What's that? Well, I'm going to talk actually about just a small handful of titles that Marvel announced, including a Spider-Man title that's clearly meant to capitalize on the upcoming new movie, Spider-Man Brand New Day. Spider-Man Long Way Home is going to use the same supporting characters that are in the movie, Hulk and Punisher. So they're throwing the 3 of them together for a new comic. It's going to be a 5-issue miniseries starting in June. Jonathan Hickman writing, promising. Adam Kubert on art. This is a cover by Dave Johnson. Cover's great. It's going to be set in the past when Punisher wasn't really Punisher and Hulk was barely known. Spider-Man was young Anyway, all three characters are going to be hunting for a cosmic cube that's missing in the South American jungles. If you don't know a cosmic cube, there's a super scientist group in Marvel Comics called AIM, Advanced Idea Mechanics. They're bad guys. They can somehow create this cosmic cube, and if you touch it, you can control reality. So it's ridiculously powerful. It's the Infinity Gauntlet before they invented the Infinity Gauntlet. So these three characters going after it. Another comic set for June. They're going to do a one-shot about Silver Surfer from the recent Fantastic Four movies, set in the movie's continuity. Shalabal. So that's going to be a story about her before she meets the Fantastic Four. Maybe her origin, I assume. Yeah, I guess it could just be an adventure with Galactus. But written by Dan Slott, art by Mark Buckingham, who I really do love. Yeah, the AIM suits are basically just 1960s radiation suits, but they still wear them. They look like beekeeper uniforms. Does the Cosmic Cube predate Mother Box? Yeah, I guess it would. Yeah, that's interesting. Pretty sure that it would, because I think that the Cosmic Cube was in the 70s, and that, well, Mother Box was New Gods, and that was also the 70s, late 70s. I'm pretty sure Cosmic Cube is first. Pretty sure. I got to double check. What else? Oh, and Marvel's going to launch another 5-issue miniseries in June. That's going to follow Bishop, everybody's favorite Bishop. They're going to have him dragged back into his future by some futuristic villains. And Bishop's going to have to team up with his sister, Shard, who I believe is dead in the modern day. But in her past, she lives in the future. Time travel. We love it. Anyway, that one's written by Saladin Ahmed and art by Mario Santoro. I don't know Mario Santoro. I know Saladin Ahmed, and he's good. Yeah, but they did do some like comics that were set in that universe, like establishing the Fantastic Four origins, and now they're releasing one-shots called Fantastic Four Foes, where they're fleshing out characters that are either mentioned or have short cameos from the movie, which is kind of fun. Yeah, Bishop's sister's name is Shart. Can you guess what her superpower is? No, I said Shard. D sound. D as in Delta, not T as in Tango. West Coast Day Avengers. You're a jerk. Messing up my beautiful highbrow show. What else do we got? Some other Marvel news. Finally, something a little positive here. The 37th annual GLAAD Media Awards happened this past week. They honor the year's best LGBTQ plus representation across all sorts of different types of media, TV, plays, movies, etc., books. Anyway, the book Avengers Academy, Marvel's Voices, won in the category of Outstanding Comic Book. So good for them. That's nice to see an award for that. Also, it's not a book that I think many people know about. It's a digital series. It's on the, what's Marvel's digital platform called again? It's not called Ultimate, is it? All of a sudden, I forget their digital platform name. Whatever. Anyway, it ran on Marvel Unlimited. It's right in front of me. Is it Ultimate? Oh, it's printed right there in front of me. Could not be easier. Idiot. Hey, it's my first time doing this. First time. All right. Anyway, yeah, so it went from 2024 through 2025. It followed a bunch of kid characters that were getting trained by Captain Marvel to be heroes of tomorrow. We're talking, Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, Red Goblin, Bloodline. She kind of came and went fast. That's Blade's daughter. Kid Juggernaut. I don't know who Kid Juggernaut is, to be honest. Some others. And a bunch of them are, somewhere in the LGBTQ family. The awards did make a point of mentioning every single person that worked on the creative team. So that's kind of nice. And then the award for Outstanding Graphic Novel, separate from comic book, graphic novel went to Mike Curado's Gasians. And that book is published by a publisher called Algonquin. It follows a young gay Asian man who befriends 3 other Gaysians after moving to Seattle during the early 2000s. So just putting that on people's radar in case either of those appeals to you. But congratulations to all of those creators for winning an award for representation. That's nice. There were some great names on this. And I don't know how clearly you can see it on your screen, but all the different creators of the Avengers Academy are listed up here in the corner. So it's nice. Good for them. Gaysians is good. It looked honestly like cool sort of slice of life stuff. And even if I'm not, part of a community, I love slice of life type stories and comics. So I would read that. I would definitely read that. What else we got? Something a little suspicious happening with these 2 Marvel titles. This is a quick little tidbit more than anything else, but there are indications that both Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch Sorcerer Supreme are going to be ending at 10 issues, which is becoming super common for Marvel Comics. Very few of them are getting past 10 issues. 10 issues is sort of the standard contract they give to creators when they're launching a new title. Hopefully it gets there. Not too many going past that, to be honest. Originally, both of these titles had solicitations for a trade paperback that would be the first 5 issues. But this week, if you look for any solicitations for those trade paperbacks, you just get little stubs. They've been edited or taken down off of pre-order places like Amazon and such. And now it says that each of these books are going to have over 200 pages. Well, you don't have 200 pages unless you have 10 issues. So it looks like Marvel has quietly made it the full run instead of like 2 5-issue runs anyway, or sort of an ongoing thing. So Marvel has not announced anything, just to be clear. This is definitely speculation, but they did announce each of these titles as having a 5-issue trade paperback initially, and now all indications seem to be that it'll be 10 issues. They've been canceling a lot of books at 10 issues, so it just seems to line up. Which is too bad. I mean, obviously Doctor Strange is a very different idea where he becomes a magician in Asgard. That sounds interesting to me, but I haven't read it. Sorcerer Supreme with Scarlet Witch, a lot of people said that they really liked the art and the writing on that. I don't know. I haven't read them, so I can't really comment too much detail. What else? Let me move this just a notch over. Center myself a tiny bit more in my window, like this. Yeah, if I jump back here, I guess that is his current outfit. Because he doesn't have, I don't think, the powers of the Vishanti, the triumvirate, those godly triumvirate that grant him his magical abilities, or at least most of his magical abilities. He lost the title of Sorcerer Supreme to Doctor Doom, who also has lost it since then, but he went and sort of remade himself as a sorcerer in Asgard. I don't know why. I don't know. But this is kind of nice news. This is really exciting, especially if I was still living in DC, this would extra excite me. Lived there for like 10 years. But this week, the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History acquired the first appearance of both Captain America and Superman. Huge, important culture for America, important for Jewish history, important for comic book history, important for superhero Marvel and DC history. Both super important books, obviously. And the Smithsonian got both of them. So they were gifted by a guy named Brandon Beck, who's the co-founder of the video game developer Riot Games. I don't know who he is, but to gift something like that to a museum, I definitely got to give him some kudos for that. So he gifted Action Comics #1 and Captain America #1 to the museum's collection. The Smithsonian wrote about it. I got a little piece of their article. But the museum has long collected artifacts that chart the rise of American entertainment. from early television to classic film props. Adding these comics strengthens its commitment to documenting how mass media shapes national consciousness. Where am I? Okay. Superheroes, once dismissed as lowbrow diversions, are now recognized as a uniquely American contribution to worldwide culture. As the Smithsonian continues to expand and reinterpret its collections, this acquisition cements the place of comic books as vital historical documents and tools of storytelling. Love it. Absolutely love it. Would love to go to the National Museum of American History someday. And, you know, I know you're not going to get to flip through them, but just to witness like the original copies, that is American history. And to us comic book nerds, that's really, really significant. But yeah, something by Jack Kirby and Joe Simon and by Joe Shuster and Jerry Siegel. Incredible. Really, really cool. I hope you get to go. The Smithsonian has always impressed me. They are dealing with tough times, folks, because our government has really stepped on their toes in terms of dictating what they can and can't include, which they should have no say in at all. But they do get some government funding, so things are crazy over there. I've got some friends that work for the Smithsonian, and it is tough times. But they are beautiful, beautiful museums. Really, really incredible. And if you didn't know, they're free. So just some of the best museums we have in our entire country. You know what would be, what will be really cool? George Lucas has donated tons of stuff and a lot of his money to create a gigantic museum in California. It's not open yet, but it will have animation, comic books, as well as like film, novels, TV, stuff like that, talking about American storytelling. Really, that should be very, very cool. Yep, that's true. What was it, like December of 1940, I think, was when Captain America comics actually hit the newsstand. It was like, it had a street date, like to get pulled by March of 1941, I think. So pretty big deal. All right, what else we got? But I was happy to share that. Oh, this one was crazy. We're going to talk about Dark Horse Comics and Mike Richardson. This is wild. Let's see. Lucas War's great comic about behind the scenes of Star Wars 77. Ooh, I would be interested in that as a big fan of George Lucas's. Yeah, I guess all of his movies, really, but certainly the ones that he wrote and directed more directly, like Star Wars, Indiana Jones, THX 1138, American Graffiti. Big fan of all those. Anyway, let me get to this story about Dark Horse. So Mike Richardson, we're going to talk a lot about Mike Richardson. I'm going to give you some details about this guy because he's done a lot of great things for comics, but he opened his first comic book store in 1980. I think around Bend, Oregon, or somewhere thereabouts. I think it was called Pegasus. Eventually, it got renamed as Things from Another World. I think that there are 11 Things from Another World. There at least were at some point. So it's a chain. It's a franchise. Anyway, more importantly, more to the story's point, he began publishing comics with Dark Horse Comics 40 years ago now. 40 years ago, 1986. Dark Horse was very different. They let the creators keep their rights to their original creations. They paid them 100% of profits. I don't know how the deals have changed over the years, but this is how it was originally. Early hits included books like Concrete by Paul Chadwick, Hellboy, of course, Mike Mignola, Sin City by Frank Miller, bunch more. The Goon by Eric Powell, that started there. Really, really cool. Well, Richardson did sell Dark Horse to this Swedish conglomerate called the Embracer Group in 2022. He remained on as the CEO, but he did sell Dark Horse to a bigger company. And I wasn't surprised. I mean, he's 75 now. Obviously, you know, he was thinking of the future. Like, how does the company keep running? What's he going to do? It was a reasonable enough step at the time. Yeah, I love these things that you guys are throwing out. Martha Washington, Time Cop, Boris the Bear. Chris Warner did some really good work for them early with stuff like Black Cross. He did some Predator stuff. This week, the Embracer Group fired Mike Richardson. They announced that they would be installing an interim CEO. Didn't really explain exactly why or anything like that. They just had some vague corporate speak about, you know, like moving the brand forward. Very, very vague. Very, very vague. But Mike Richardson is a huge guy in comics for what he created. Very, very. There would be no Image Comics if Dark Horse hadn't started laying some foundations. Dark Horse is huge in that regard. Richardson also helped pioneer bringing manga to America. That should be noted. Books like before Marvel published it at Epic, he was bringing over Akira, Lone Wolf and Cub, Ghost in the Shell, Blade of the Immortal, Oh My Goddess. There were others, just to be clear. I want to say like Kamiko was an early one and stuff like that. But it was huge. It was huge. You know, he was bringing this stuff over before it was mainstream. He also proved how successful you could be with licensed comics. You know, I think some of us enjoyed books like, say, ROM Space Knight or Micronauts, but just as many were kind of quickly forgotten, like, you know, Shogun Warriors and, you know, I don't know, you get like, you know, Star Trek a Gold Key, but it didn't last long, you know, like it was looked down on. But I think that they proved that you could make some really good comics with their Alien, Predator, Terminator, books like that. I mean, they created Alien versus Predator. So a lot of pioneering stuff at Dark Horse. And yeah, Richardson also produced a lot of some of the big budget hit comic book movies. You know, that we didn't get many comic book movies regularly before about 1989, when Batman was this humongous blockbuster. We'd gotten Superman, Swamp Thing, but not a lot. But he did The Mask. Time Cop was a big hit. Hellboy. Look, not all of them were hits either. I'm not trying to, you know, sugarcoat it. How many people remember Jamie Lee Curtis and Virus? How many of us think that Pam Anderson and Barbed Wire was a sterling piece of art? No, but they did a lot of good ones, and they did it before, you know, Marvel and DC were doing what they're doing these days. So, just a lot of huge accomplishments, all under Mike Richardson. Honestly, for next steps, totally unclear. Embracer Group has not said what they want to do differently or why they let him go, anything like that. So I don't know what's going to happen from here. For the industry's sake, I want Dark Horse to continue to exist with what it does. You know, good licensed books and a lot of nice creator-owned books. I want it to be that, but I don't know. That's a good point. Dark Horse did eventually hire Karen Berger to do her own label there. Andy, always nice to have you here. When Dark Horse first started publishing comics, they were firing on all cylinders. Almost every book was top tier. Hats off to Mike Richardson. No question. Dark Horse Presents was in an era where anthologies were not very popular. Dark Horse Presents would always give you awesome stuff. I mean, Sin City, Aliens versus Predator, books like that were debuting in Dark Horse Presents. It was so, so good. I'm glad that a few of you like Virus and Barbed Wire, but I don't think you can put it on the same success level as The Mask with Jim Carrey. I just don't think you can, but I'm glad you like it. Virus was a comic. Dr. Giggles was a comic. That was a horror movie. Dr. Giggles. It's fun sometimes to talk about movies that people don't know are based on comic books. It's kind of fun. You know, I don't think I really know that one. Iyanu, based on it's a great African fantasy comic. That sounds cool. Anyway, yeah. to embrace our group, I guess IP stands for increased profits. No intellectual property anymore, just increased profits. I don't know what Mike Richardson wants to do anymore. Maybe he wants to enjoy retirement with his family at this point. But he should be proud of the legacy he created. He did so many great things for comics. Helped creator rights, created a great store, created some great movies, imported manga. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot right there. No Man's Land. Just a quick thing on this, but Simon Karansky, I think he's pretty well known for a run on Spawn in the past, but he did a creator-owned book that he wrote and drew called No Man's Land at Image, and it has a movie in the works. Hollywood Reporter says that the 4-issue comic is in development from a producer named Jason Berman. He did Spike Lee's movie last year, Highest to Lowest. I didn't see it, but, it's a pretty big name. The premise of No Man's Land is cool, though. Let me just mention this. For 3 months each year, you can walk from the USA to Russia across an ice bridge. I don't know if it's 3 months anymore, to be honest. Anyway, a frozen path known as the Ice Curtain. In 1963, when the body of a woman is discovered frozen in this icy no man's land, the already fragile geopolitical balance between these two countries threatens to collapse. With nuclear tensions intensifying, a veteran FBI agent and an ambitious new female KGB operative are forced into an uneasy alliance to solve the murder before the ice melts and a global conflict is triggered. Cool idea for a murder mystery. Anytime you have a murder mystery and like jurisdiction is a big old question mark, that's a cool idea. Yep, goes across the Bering Strait. There's a couple little islands that help create that ice bridge. I didn't read it. I love the premise. That sounds like it could make a good movie. I know I read this, but I remember literally nothing about it. Oh well. Yeah, you kind of want people to be angry more than you want them to forget, but still. It is a little like Whiteout, a little bit, but yeah, Whiteout is great, by the way. If you've never read the first Whiteout with art by Steve Lieber, oh man, that first book is fantastic. Here's why I need my live chat. Don't know if you heard about this, but it's a cold case. Yeah! All right. As long as I'm talking about Simon Kudranski, yes, it's so good. Strongly recommend Whiteout. There's a sequel that's okay, but the first one, fantastic, folks. Really, really good. Yeah. So everybody just go ahead, actually. And if you've got a Mr. Freeze pun, get it out of your system now before I move on to the next piece of news, And then everybody chill. Whiteout did have a movie. The comic is better, is all I'll say. The comic is better. Cool it. This is fantastic. I gave you your time for your cold puns. They didn't come fast enough. I'm moving on. Highlander. I get why they're doing this now. They're making a Highlander comic, although it's a cool idea for it. What's in the coffee? Actually, that fair question. There are these sugar-free syrups that you can get for coffee that I really like by Tarani. And this one is one I'd never tried before. Brown sugar cinnamon. Really, really good. All right. What brand coffee? Is Chrissy watching? What kind of? Cafe Bustelo. Cafe Bustelo is what I like. All right. Going to talk about Highlander. This is not about the upcoming movie. They're rebooting it, if you don't know, with Henry Cavill as Connor McLeod and I think Dave Bautista as the Kurgan. I like that. And I want to say Russell Crowe as the mentor. Maybe. Anyway, Highlander. Titan Comics, they do most prominently Conan these days, but they also do things like Doctor Who and stuff. Anyway, Titan announced a comic book based on the 1986 Highlander movie original screenplay, so it will be a little different. Highlander, the original screenplay, comes out November 17th, and it's going to adapt the first draft of the script by Gregory Wyden with Simon Kodransky on art, as we were mentioning before. The original screenplay is said to have been darker, a little less of an adventure, I guess, have more scenes set in the past with the various immortals that are all, fated to fight each other, and a different epilogue at the very end. I don't know what that could be. I like the first Highlander so much, and if I'm being honest, none of the sequels are any good. Like, not even a little good. They're all terrible. The TV show was fine. The TV show was fine, I guess. But the first movie, fantastic. I really liked it. One thing that's interesting when I was looking at these pictures is Simon Kodransky definitely draws from reference material a lot, and that's fine. That's how some artists work. And he's definitely using Christopher Lambert as the basis for his Connor MacLeod. So they must have likeness rights for this, honestly. But like, the rest of the characters do not look like the characters from the movies. They look re-envisioned. I don't know. The jump from 1 to 2. 2 is just so bad. But you know what? 2 isn't even the worst. I literally think each one gets a little worse. That's just me. Oh, we've done it. We did the second one for Trash Movie Bonanza. Just so if that's what you want, good news. It's on this channel. Jim and I definitely looked at that. That was back when we would look at 2 episodes or 2 movies an episode. So he chose Prom Night 2 and I chose Highlander 2. Crazy stuff. Love the Queen soundtrack. Love the actors that are in it. I mean, Clancy Brown and Sean Connery. It's so good, that first movie. It shouldn't have been as good as it is because it's definitely a pulp type of a movie, but the sword fights are good. It's got stylish direction. It's a good movie. I love it. All right. And now it's the time of the show where I shit on Jeff Loeb. No, I'm not going to totally shit on him, but some weird stuff with him. By the way, let me mention this. Jeff Loeb was, I guess, at my local Comic-Con that just happened this past weekend, Emerald City Comic-Con. That's where some of this news will come from. And apparently he charges $40 for a signature. I thought that was pretty high. I've heard of people charging for a signature, but that is up there. That is up there. Anyway, so yeah, Emerald City Comic-Con this past week, there was a DC panel. Jeff Loeb shared a couple updates that I thought I'd share. First of all, he explained that his upcoming Batman Wonder Woman The Truth series with Jim Chung on art, that comes out next month. That's going to refer to events from his first Hush miniseries, or not miniseries, that was more of a maxi series, 12 issues. And it's set between Hush and the technically still going Hush 2 Batman stories. He also said, and I mean, I guess it's a joke, but it's a weird joke. He said that Alan Heinberg will be consulting on this Batman Wonder Woman comic. And here's a quote from Jeff Loeb. "For those of you worried that I won't know how to write Wonder Woman, I agree." And that's why he hired Heinberg, who I guess at one point wrote a screenplay script for Wonder Woman. It wasn't used. Oh, 40 is high. 40 is really high. I've seen the thing I see more often when people will charge is maybe like charge if you just want one signature for just the name, but if you're buying books from them, maybe they won't charge, or if you can personalize it to that person, like, to Chris, then they won't charge you. I paid, I think, $25 for Michael Golden to sign a copy of the NAMM #1. And I was like, do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? And I was like, no, I personally really like Michael Golden. So to me, this is an autograph that I want. So I paid the $25, but $40, I don't know. I can't, off the top of my head, even though there's a lot of artists that I really love, I pay that for like an original sketch, of course. I'd pay a lot more than that for original art. It's hard to pay like a signature. It's hard for me to justify that. It's really hard. Also, though, since this came up, Loeb did also talk about how Hush 2 is 9 months late, or at least issue 163 is the final issue of it. He said that it's down to Jim Lee being so busy. In fact, he said like Jim Lee is like, the best artist running the best comic book company. And so, he's busy. I'm like, yeah, he's busy, but it's not like you guys announced this and then he got surprised by things like promoting the Superman movie or something. Like he knew this stuff was coming and he had a lot of time before it launched. Anyway, he specifically said, hate the game, not the man. I don't hate Jim Lee. I would never hate Jim Lee. But I can also go like, get it together, man. Get it together. You paid $15 for Art Adams? I think I would do that too. I would. I really love Art Adams. It's okay to me that some artists charge for their autograph. It is okay. I would just say that there's a price for me personally where an autograph doesn't necessarily excite me that much. If I can have a moment talking to a creator that I really admire and get them to sign their book, that's exciting for me. I'll remember that. But paying $40 is a lot. David Finch was at the convention too. I don't know what he was maybe charging. Oh, Heinberg did write an arc on Wonder Woman. That's helpful to know. I kind of figured he must have, but I didn't double check. I'm never going to destroy Jim Lee. I like Jim Lee. I like Jim Lee quite a bit, to be honest. Yeah. I'm trying to think, like, out of like the original founding Image creators, I think my favorite remains Eric Larson, but Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane, honestly, I even still have a lot of love for Jim Valentino, especially his writing, and early Rob Liefeld too. I do love them all. Like it was pretty formative to young Chris. All right, moving on to some other DC stuff. At the same panel, it was called DC Next Level, and they had their editor Rob Levin sort of moderating it, but they had a bunch of different writers and artists on it talking about upcoming stuff for DC. For instance, Jason Aaron talked about something that's coming up in Absolute Superman. He's going to go up against King Shazam, which is, I guess, the absolute version of Black Adam, or as he's called in that book, Teth Adam. That sounds interesting. That sounds powerful. Tony Fleeks is the writer of the upcoming Deathstroke the Terminator book, and he said that it's going to start with that assassin character being chased or hunted, really, by other assassins, including Deadshot, cool, and Deathblow. DC keeps sort of trying to find ways to integrate Wildstorm, Jim Lee's stuff from... what do you call it? From Image into their continuity. But I don't know about a lot of use of Deathblow, Deathstroke, Deadshot. What other characters have Death in their name aside from Death herself? Tony Fleeks is the real name of Parappa the Rappa, if you remember. Tony Fleeks is awesome. He writes Stray Cats, which, no, the Stray Dogs was the name. Feral. He wrote Stray Dogs. He writes Feral, which I talk up all the time. I love that book. Also, he wrote and illustrated Local Man. Great Image title. Great Finite Image title. G. Willow Wilson was on the panel. She said that Poison Ivy is going to become the mayor of Gotham City in issue 42, but that she probably won't be very good at it. It's an interesting character turn. And in sort of related news to DC, artist Stepan Sejic, sometimes he stops in here. he's been working obviously on a lot of creator-owned stuff for the last 6 years, books like Sunstone. But he did hint on social media that he's going to be returning to DC Comics for a secret project. No more news than that, but I think that lucky DC. And he's been sort of dipping his toe in those waters for a little while now, doing covers, but this sounds like something bigger. Yeah, too much death in these comics. Where are those cool superheroes and like Life Cry? Anybody remember Avengers hero Life Cry? Nobody remembers Life Cry. Let me try to remember what Life Cry even looks like. Yeah, because it was Death Cry. She renamed herself. She looks kind of like her sister Lilandra. Anyway. This was cool. This is cool. So I follow this comic creator on Instagram. I think she's really interesting. You may remember last year, sometimes she's known as Becky Burke. Sometimes she goes by R.E. Burke, as in Rebecca. But she's Welsh, and she was backpacking from America up to Canada, and ICE detained her for nearly 3 weeks. It was not a good story at all. Did not make the U.S. look good. She went through something really tough. Well, she's been posting to Instagram ever since then that she's creating a comic book diary of her experiences there. Talk about the conditions, talk about her experience, of course, but also about the other women that she met there, which I cannot wait to read. I'm just utterly fascinated with whatever's going on behind those walls. This week, Fantagraphics announced that they got the rights. They've negotiated a deal with her. They're going to publish her graphic novel, which has now been titled Visiting America 19 Days in an ICE Facility. And Burke posted this sentence to Instagram with some images of the upcoming book. Weird instance of a nightmare leading to a childhood dream coming true. It is tricky trying to balance the two things some days. Anyway, I am working so hard to get this with you as soon as possible. So thank you for bearing with me and stay safe out there. Well, I appreciate what she's doing. I'll definitely be picking that up. I wonder if she would ever even consider coming back here, to promote this book. If she was willing to do it and come to like Fantagraphics here in Seattle, I would be there in a heartbeat, but I wouldn't blame her at all if she was like, no way. I don't know. Think you'll eventually get to report on this book being banned? Oof. I don't know. I hope not. But Fantagraphics feels like a really good home. Something like, I wouldn't have even been surprised if it like ended up being like a Canadian printer, like drawn in quarterly, but I'm really, really cool. It's not going to make us look good, but I think this is a story that needs to be told. Yeah. So wanted to put that on people's radar. That is something Becky's been showing images and panels of that she's been working on ever since she got out. And she's even created like a small version of it that she sold at, I think, Thought Balloon, that convention in the UK. She sold like a sort of a small, sort of almost ash can version of a few pages. Yeah. One more piece of news. Diamond, surprise! They're back. No, they never went away. So there is. Let me explain if you don't know, and I'm sure a bunch of you do, but if you don't, a trustee. A trustee is the temporary business, maybe sometimes a bank, law firm, etc., that is put in charge of an entity that's going out of business. In this case, Diamond Distribution eventually did declare Chapter 7 bankruptcy, which is where it starts getting liquidated. So they have a trustee responsible for wrapping up their affairs. It's called Morgan W. Fisher is the name of the entity. And this past week, Morgan W. Fisher petitioned the bankruptcy courts to extend the deadline for them to accept or reject various proposals from the publishers whose comics they still have in a warehouse down in, Missouri? Olive Branch, Missouri. The judge said, no, I don't care that you got appointed with, what you consider a recent turnaround time. Like, this has been dragging on for way too long. You don't get an extension. You have to agree or not agree, but this has to move forward. There are two publisher committees, like a group of a bunch of publishers that created sort of like they work together to just hire like one legal team to represent all of them. So there were two of those groups. Okay. One was called the ad hoc committee and another was something like the committee of consigned comics, something close to that. Okay. It doesn't really matter, but like two different groups of all the publishers whose books are just sitting there in the old Diamond warehouse. And they allege that this new trustee, instead of working with them, communicating about, some sort of resolution to this, have been spending the last 2 weeks since they got appointed hiring lawyers and literally, they say, trying to sell the inventory to Sparkle Pop, which is the entity that bought Diamond. They shouldn't be negotiating to do any of that shit. Publishers are pointing out that there is $47 million worth of inventory of consigned inventory just sitting there in the warehouse. And that would be worth something close to more like $113 million if it was sold for cover price. But, like the sort of wholesale price is still $47 million. So there's a lot of value still sitting there. And these publishers are saying they haven't had any updates about their comics that are just sitting there. They don't know who's responsible for even monitoring it right now, since that warehouse isn't actively fulfilling anything. There may not even be insurance on it if, God forbid, there's a broken pipe or a fire or something like that. Like, maybe everybody just loses it all. And they say that allegedly they've seen evidence that Sparkle Pop has been selling some of it, even though they're legally not supposed to be touching it, that belongs to the old entity of Diamond. And it should not be the new owners selling it. But there were some books that were ordered by a comic book store ages ago. And then they just got a heads up that a bunch of Fantagraphics books were coming to them. And they were and the store was like, well, wait a minute. I thought that those were all actually consigned inventory. So some fishy stuff going on. Publishers are arguing that because of the Chapter 7 bankruptcy, this should be over. They're just owed their inventory back. No more negotiating. They're just supposed to get their inventory back because it's worth almost $114 million retail. $47 million in what it was worth to just sort of print and get there and the wholesale price, but it could be sold for cover price for $114 million. And look, some of it, maybe it's worth less now. Some of it might be worth more if it's rare or not out there much. It's just time to get this resolved, though. Pretty wild stuff. And that was everything I've got for the news of the week. But we still have comic books to review. So if you'll bear with me, I'm going to set up the next segment of the show. We're going to do some reviews.
Let's review.
Review it.
The review.
The reviews are in. I repeat, the reviews are in.
Go to your reviews.
What?
Speaking of bad reviews.
Don't worry about that review.
Let's review all the facts.
All right, gentlemen, let's review.
Before we do, let's review.
Those reviews really came out fast.
Maybe we can review some right now?
I'm not going to review all that again.
Now let's review.
Not my worst review.
Let's review, shall we? To review.
I think I've reviewed about as much as I can.
I think I have messed around with my settings such that it should now be auto-focusing a little bit better than it used to. Obviously, I used to... Yeah, that should be a little sharper, I hope, than it used to be. And I know every once in a while it'll try to, refocus. But I think that generally you're going to get a sharper picture than I've done in the past. So there were several interesting reviews. There are several interesting books that came out this week. But you know what? I did read a few of them digitally. So I don't have like, an indicator here, but let me share this. One of them was White Sky. And I might, some of these I was thinking, okay, for Dork, I'll get the reprint when that comes out. I was thinking the same for things like Nectar and Narco and stuff, but I couldn't wait. And I just decided to buy the digital version for a couple Image comics. One of them is White Sky, which sold out. I didn't love this book. I don't dislike it per se, though, either. It is a post-apocalyptic type story that starts, and it feels very much like The Road by Cormac McCarthy, because it's got a father traveling with their child, in this case, an older daughter, and they're going through an apocalyptic wasteland and talking about how the things behind them burned everything. Eventually, they come across some looters and have trouble, but then there's some weird supernatural creatures that come out of the ground and can burn things. Fine. I just, maybe I'm spoiled because it wasn't that long ago that I read that great French bande dessinée adaptation of No Man's Land. Just gorgeous, gorgeous book. White Sky just didn't give me quite enough to excite me with something new. And issue 2 might give more. Again, the art is good. The dialogue is fine. The pacing is fine. There's nothing bad about this book. I'm not trying to trash it. I'm just saying that I didn't get anything necessarily new enough that really excited me about it. So if I was giving this a rating out of 3 possible thumbs, I'd probably give it about 1.5, somewhere between 1.5 to 2 thumbs. 1.5 to 2 thumbs out of 3 thumbs. There was a French comic adaptation last year of The Road, and it was really, really good. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Yeah, sometimes my scale isn't like, 2 thumbs up. It's just 3 thumbs is the most you can get. So, yeah. But then I also read another Image comic. I bought this one too, Narco. And I loved this book. This one I was totally down for. Art-wise, it really reminds me of early Ryan Ottley, just to be clear. The Ryan Ottley that draws Battle Beast now has really leveled up his game and does gorgeous, gorgeous, elaborate detail and backgrounds and gesture and compositions. And early on, he definitely had a lot of those skills, but it was a little bit more open line work and a little more cartoony, exaggerated here and there. And this artist reminds me a little of that. Narco's story is a crime story. I don't think that there's anything sci-fi or supernatural. But the main character is this guy who, when his heart rate gets up over 200, if he's excited or working out hard or anything, he has narcolepsy and he falls asleep. He's basically a guy that's got like sort of detective skills. He's really, really smart. He's got his friends. And it just sort of starts with him having a crush on a waitress, and she lives in the same apartment building. She sort of makes a date with him. But then she comes screaming and banging on his door, and something bad is happening to her, and it raises his blood heart rate too much. And so he passes out and he doesn't get to witness what happens or help her. But obviously, like, his goal is going to be to solve this crime. So I love that sort of very unique weakness, I think you could call it, for this character, or at least an impediment. I was blown away by it. It was paced so well. I believed in the characters. It was really, really cool. The idea that he has to be very careful about not getting stressed out. And he's got social anxiety and stuff too, just to be clear. And he tries to like exercise and stuff to have his heart rate get higher. But, you know, those are the issues he has to deal with. I just loved it. So this one I would give somewhere between 2.5 to 3 thumbs. I'd probably give it 3 thumbs. Oh yeah, he's got a little bit of guilt issues over it. It's fantastic. This is what Sleepwalkers should have been. But anyway, strong recommend. Totally see why this one sold out. And if you can find a copy, I do recommend it. Oh, I meant to say Bande Dessinée of the Road. My bad. Anyway, let me bring up these comics that I read this week. So, this is the finale of DC K.O. And I've been talking up how much I enjoyed the first 4 issues. By the way, I laughed out loud a little bit when I saw this variant cover by Daniel Warren Johnson. I just think that there's something very funny about the idea of Batman giving Superman a standing top rope suplex. I just find that funny. So I love it. This wraps up the, what do you call it? The tournament where all these heroes were trying to gather Omega energy to go up against Darkseid. And Lex Luthor seemed to have won. I didn't love this too much because it's sort of retcon stuff. And basically, Superman is sort of helped by a guy with time traveling powers. I'm trying to keep it a little vague. And Superman is given these weird godly powers to be able to influence the universe and go up against Darkseid with like good energy. And it's not like it came out of completely nowhere, but it does feel like it's a cheat based on like the fact that we had this huge tournament, and then you're going to be like, and by the way, at the end of the day, the tournament doesn't really matter. That there was other stuff going on behind the scenes, and now Superman has another chance to be the hero. I'm like, I don't love that. I don't love that. It's not terrible, but it's a little weird too. You know, it gets so metaphysical and esoteric. The idea of Superman having these godly powers to go up against a god. I'm not even going to get too far into it. I'll just say that I still liked the journey, but I don't think it sticks the landing. I'd probably only give this about 1.5 thumbs out of 3 thumbs. So I was pretty disappointed with it as a conclusion to the story. It wasn't completely unfair. The characters and the mechanics of what they're doing, they'd introduced some of those ideas within this series, but it wasn't like it was ever really talked about as like, hey, we've got a backup plan. I felt like it was a cop-out. Yeah, it didn't quite deliver as a finale for me. I don't super mind because I had fun with the journey of the that one snuck up on me. The journey of how the tournament wasn't just you versus you, blah 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 blah. No, they had unique rules to each sort of round, and I kind of liked a lot of that. I was okay with it. I was okay with some of the surprise wins. I thought that there was some good logic with the first 4 issues. I just sort of feel like this one sort of comes out of nowhere and goes like, psych, there was another way to beat Darkseid. Well, why didn't you mention that from the beginning? You know, I don't know. Much more enjoyable is just the regular Batman title, the ongoing by Matt Fraction and Jorge Jimenez. And in this, Batman gets invited to talk to the new Doctor character's mysterious patient who wants to talk to him. And she has him go across, like, this weird security floor where, you'll get zapped if you step off of the tiles. There's a lot of security measures. Well, who is this mysterious patient? It's Joker, who was somehow survived, I guess, the events of DC K.O. And he's a very different character, actually. He seems to be thinking clearly, although he doesn't also like have full memories. It's a really cool conversation between Joker and Batman that will remind you a little of things like, say, Hannibal. You know, not Hannibal. Well, it was with the character of Hannibal in Silence of the Lambs, right? You know, the kind of story where the villain is captured. Or another good one was Skyfall, when James Bond was talking to that former MI6 agent, whoever the bad guy was in that one, and he was like locked up in this glass case. It's interesting seeing like a good guy and a bad guy have like, you know, this really harsh debate where they hate each other. The bad guy seems to be all locked up, but you're like, no, they're still pulling some strings. Here's something cool, folks, is the art by Jorge Jimenez. Let me zoom out just a little here, okay? So we get this, like, we open to the middle, and you get this cool 2-page spread of him in his tank with his, like, you know, mask that definitely still emulates a bit of a smile and everything. And you get to see what's going on inside of his mind. And it's this humongous four-page gateway spread where he now remembers everything he's ever done. And it references all sorts of previous stories, like killing Jason Todd, or having Harley Quinn as a sidekick in the past. The Laughing Fish is a classic Joker story, things like that. But how gorgeous to go from like this to that. It's not something you get to see in monthly comics too often. The closest thing I can think to this sort of art would be the first issue of Absolute Martian Manhunter, where the final page is a splash page, and if you hold it up to the light, you can see through the art on the other side, and it makes one image. There's like two images, but together with the light shining through, it creates one cool image. So anyway, it's really ambitious, but it's a beautiful composition. It tells you a little bit something about the character's mind. I really liked it quite a bit. Overall, I really, really enjoyed the issue. Batman is very much frustrating the Doctor because he does not trust Joker. Oh, cool. Let's see. The double page splash was very good, and try to put it upside down. Right. Since it's kind enough to get a super chat like that, let's show you what it looks like that way. It's just sort of a man almost screaming and looking more upset and everything. Very different interpretation of what might be going on inside the Joker's head. But the biggest change to this story is like, okay, well, we've seen the Joker, you know, be severely imaged or come back from, like, you know, seeming death before. We have seen things like that before. So what makes this different? The thing that makes it different is the Joker remembers everything, including he now knows Batman's identity. Okay. So where does it go from there? Where does it go when his greatest enemy, a creature of pure chaos, seems to have full access to his memories? How dangerous would he be if he just wasn't completely crazy? But of course, we don't know exactly how this treatment planned by the Doctor is working or works. So I think that there are still wrinkles to come in Joker's story. I just think that the art was great, and it was very tense. It was good. You get like sort of a full story of a confrontation scene between Batman and his enemy, and they're really playing a game of wits, trying to understand what each other knows about the other. It's really, really good. I don't know if he's known that 100% or not, because I don't read all the Batman stuff, but it's definitely presented as though it's going to be something new moving forward. Yeah. I liked it. I'd definitely give this one 2.5 thumbs. We also got the finale of Beneath the Trees, its sequel, Rite of Spring. So we got the final issue of K.O. and we got the final issue of Beneath the Trees. And oh my God, Samantha Strong is one of the most interesting villains in comics in the last 5 or 10 years. I'll go beyond comics. She's an absolutely fascinating villain who has a distinct way of thinking, a distinct methodology of going after people, and the lengths she is willing to go to really show just how bad she is. So in this, Samantha Strong has been found out, like, that she's a serial killer, and she had a backup plan all along, knowing this could happen someday, and that involved setting off little bombs throughout her quiet little suburb, the fire department, the hospital, all these things, so that while the very small fire department and police are trying to save people and put out fires and stuff, she has plenty of time to just traipse out of the city. They can't be bothered. Oh my God, it's so evil. It's so evil. All I can say is that there are a lot of other interesting small stories in this that you're going to want to read about the ways the community comes together to help one another. There's been this, what do you call it? Like a hermit, somebody that has like anxiety about going outside and stuff like that. This, who's a turtle, which is a great, visual metaphor too. When he's leaving, he sees that a bunch of the people at the retirement home have just been left there. And he does something very selfless, and he works to save them. There's so much to talk about, but then I'd just be doing a blow for blow recap. It's incredible. No. She feels a lot like Dexter in some of these because it's like a cat and mouse game of people trying to find her out, or her trying to find out how much people know about her, and she's a serial killer. But Dexter ultimately is this guy that still tries to kill other serial killers and other criminals. But Samantha kills sort of for the pleasure of it, and she will kill, like, she'll pretend to be friends and ingratiate herself into this community, and then she has no compunctions about flipping a switch, and she'll hurt anybody to benefit herself. It's incredible. That was the only part that I sincerely kind of liked about Boss Battle, because it was such a brief crossover with all the other characters, but I did like her attacking Lex Luthor and kind of winning. Yes, I agree. Like, there are these characters you get to know, and you're like, well, they've got to be safe. They've got to sort of have main character status. And the only one that seems like somewhat safe, and even then you could imagine her getting arrested or killed, but like, is Samantha. The people around her are in so much danger. I think that this does lay the tracks for something very different with the main character again. It was great, folks. This is easily 3 out of 3 thumbs. This is my pick for book of the week. Right behind it would probably be Narco, although I don't know if that came out last week. I lost track of what came out when, but this was my book of the week. Loved it. Really, really love it. It deserves all the praise it's getting. Thank you, Larry. Hey, Chris, life is crazy, and you're a breath of fresh air. That's me. I brush my teeth. I can't tell you how much you uplift my spirits despite the chaos and suffering. Much love. That's really kind of you. Wow. Well, thanks, Larry. Good luck. I agree. It can be a dark world, but sorry, there's like a lawnmower or something outside that surprised me. Community and storytelling are 2 things that can definitely help in bad times. 2 regular thumbs and 1 hitchhiker's thumb. Sure, I'll do that. I did read some other books this week that I'll just mention quickly for some quick reviews. I got this one because I love reading funny comics on Instagram in particular. I think there's some really good ones out there, like Beetle Moses. If you haven't read that, Beetle Moses is funny. I came across this one, Lukey McGarry, and it's all quick stories of what it's like to be an artist tabling at Comic-Cons. Each page is just its own, usually 4-panel strip. It really cracked me up. Sometimes less than 4 panels. Let's see. Let me see what to give you as an example. All right. So this couple is standing in front of his table, and the girl says, "Okay, stand right there. I'm going to use the restroom." "Okay, hon." And then he's just standing directly in front of Lukey's table. Luke gets annoyed and goes, "Well, obviously not right there." These are oblivious stories of people. And when you read it, you're like, yeah, this stuff definitely happens at conventions. "I love the cartoons where you pretend to hate Comic-Cons." Yes, pretend. I recommend it. Yeah, Lukey McGarry on Instagram or Twitter. Lukey McGarry. So I like that. That was a nice little discovery. Every once in a while, I pick up Twilight Zone. These are all, I think, from like previous weeks. These are all comics that I was a little late to. That's why I didn't really include it in that first batch. But real quick, this is a Twilight Zone by Francesco Francavilla, writing with somebody named L. Marlo Francavilla, who I might guess is like their partner or something. I like Francesco Francavilla's art. I think it suits horror very well. And this is a great story of some scientists and some military people going underwater to explore a meteorite. And of course, some weird stuff happens because it's the Twilight Zone. But it feels very authentic to the Twilight Zone. I liked it quite a bit. Issue 5. Not bad at all. Brutal Dark. I don't know how I missed this the previous week. This is a Vertigo book. And it's by writer Chris Condon, and Jacob Phillips, who do That Texas Blood, among other books. This is a crime story, although it's also a little bit Indiana Jones, set in the 40s, where this detective named Ezra Kane is ultimately hired to track down an artifact that was stolen from Greece during World War II. And so there's a lot of like different parties involved, different governments, different criminals. This is his character. There's some really wonderful work. I don't know, character work, I guess is what I'd call it. Really good dialogue, really nice dialogue. Interesting relationships with police and with people at like the museum that are hiring him to track down this missing artifact. And I don't know if there's going to be a supernatural element to it or not, but it does sort of feel like something that's between noir crime type stories, but also adventures like, I'd say, Indiana Jones, or maybe like the Maltese Falcon, something with Humphrey Bogart. It feels so cool. The time period feels so lived in and authentic. The 1941 New York City time period, the clothes, the architecture. I'm blown away by it. I loved it. Let's see. Brutal Dark is so good. Love Condon and Phillips. Huge inspirations, and I love their stories. Oh yeah, I'd definitely say that Jacob Phillips is different than his father, but I'd also say that he's influenced by his father. Jacob is also a great colorist, just to be clear. But Jacob, I think, has probably learned from his father, Sean Phillips, in terms of how confident he is to use really dark shadows, deep blacks when he's laying down his inks. And sort of an economy of line art in faces and stuff like that. I can definitely tell them apart, but I think he's a student of what his father's learned. I definitely think so. Oh yeah, there's some similarities, but I'll say this: if you like books like Criminal, you'd probably also enjoy Brutal Dark. You probably would. I'd give this one at least 2.5 thumbs out of 3 thumbs. They are father-son. And if you read a bunch of Criminal, Jacob often does the colors for stuff that Brubaker and Phillips do together. Jacob often does the colors. I don't know how I missed this, folks, because this is one of my favorite comics right now. Rick Remender and Daniel Acuna, Escape. It's definitely a World War II-esque story following very specifically, a pilot who lands behind crashes behind enemy lines and is trying to destroy their super weapon. And in this, he's the only survivor of the plane crash, and he's trying to destroy a cannon in basically Germany run by bats instead of and he allows himself to get captured, but seems to have set things up to indicate that there's like an actual army supporting him. What I was impressed with that, let me find it in here, is some of the character work for the pacing and gesture of, just being tied up in this makeshift, like prison room. You get a character that's a little bit like Hans Landa from Inglourious Bastards. Very, very clever. Very, very clever bad guy that's interrogating this pilot, this captain, and trying to break him and find out how much he knows. But I was really impressed with Acuna's character work here. Let me look at, like, for this, like hovering over his shoulder, walking past him, dragging a chair up to like talk to him. A lot of artists don't always know what kind of staging to do with characters when they're having a conversation scene. They have to be doing a little something, but sometimes they can just be standing there, and they might vary up the shots, like high angles, low angles, etc. But what I like about what Daniel Acuna is doing is he's really putting a lot of thought into the staging, where these characters are in relation to each other, and being very consistent with it. So, beyond the lighting and the character design and the composition of these pages, I'm really blown away by like some of the staging for these gestures, like just hunched over here, leaning into him, or dragging this chair, are such small moments, but boy, oh boy, do they add to the story. This is such subtle storytelling that, God, it blows me away when you notice like how good it is. I'm not always for anthropomorphized, but I am when it's done well. And this is some of the best anthropomorphized character work I've seen. Like, how do you make something both look very much like a bear, but also so expressive? It's not fully cartoony, but it's just cartoony enough. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. And it's scary. It like shows how bad war is. Like when the main character, I want to say his name was Shaw. I'm forgetting right now. I'm bad at names. He's strangling out a guard. And like just how scared the guard looks. This is technically a bad guy, but I'll be honest, I felt a little empathy for him in his final moment there. It's pretty rough. Yeah, I think that's fair. It's incredible. I think that they're going to take a small hiatus after this issue 6, just to, be able to release 6 issues or so at a time. It doesn't quite end on a cliffhanger, but it's definitely not done either, just to be clear. There's definitely a lot more story to go here. This was incredible. If this came out this week, this would also be a contender for my pick of the week, but I think it came out either last week or even the week before, and I somehow missed it. Pretty sure. This quality is incredible. I cannot recommend Escape enough, both on a writing and an art perspective. Both people just full steam ahead. Just incredible stuff. Really, really good. So, a few recommendations in there. The ones that I'd recommend the most strongly here would be these 3, Escape, Brutal Dark, and Beneath the Trees. But I was very happy with the comics that I was able to get. I'm just going to sort of like draw a little bit of a werewolf here, but while I do that, I had some topics that I was going to talk about as well. And that included getting some original art the other day. I don't know how many of you would know the name Toshio Maeda. But Maeda-san is a mangaka who is famous for basically inventing hentai. He certainly invented tentacle stuff for like sex comics and stuff. He did some pretty famous manga that was turned into some maybe infamous anime like La Girl Blue and Uratsuka Doji. But anyway, he is a great artist. And he was at a convention that I may or may not have attended. And I got a piece of art because it was only $80. And I got to speak with him in as much Japanese as I knew, and he was very good with English. And I know that this is a little pervy, but basically this guy is an important part of comics history, and $80 is really not much to spend for an original piece of art. I've obviously censored it a bit for the show, but it was very interesting to speak to him. Very interesting. So yeah, Toshio Maeda, Uratsuka Doji. Whew, crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. But how do you say no to like original published art for $80, especially when it's by somebody that's got such history behind him, right? It's not necessarily my thing, but I admire it, like, honestly, on a historical comics level. And I think it's good art. And it was really interesting to speak with him. And, you know, I basically only know more like phrases than having easy conversation in Japanese. But I was able to say, you know, hajimemashite, you know, nice to meet you. I was able to ask, you know, where he's from, to talk about what parts of Osaka, which is where he's from, like that I like. I was able to ask, you know, how much is this? And what was really cool was he was showing me some of the original art. And I asked a pointed question because it had a lot of textures on one page. And I said, did you have assistants that helped with this? Because this is very complex. He's like, yes, I did. He goes, and I studied under, and I forget how to pronounce the guy's name, but he's like, you wouldn't know this guy because he wasn't like a famous manga artist. And I said, and in Japanese, I'm like, didn't he study under Takeo Saito? And Maeda sensei, his eyes lit up and he goes, oh, you know? And I was like, I do know the name. And I'm sorry that right now it's eluding me. But when I hear it, I recognize it. Saito-san was, he only passed away a few years ago, but he was the creator of Golgo 13, which I think is still the longest running manga. It's about an assassin. And so the fact that I recognized that Maeda's teacher had studied under Saito was really impressed him. And then that made me feel good about myself, that I was able to talk about it and that I was able to speak to him in as much Japanese as I could. And it was a really, really cool experience, to be honest. It was a really cool experience. So again, keep telling myself that. What did I do wrong? Anyway, so that's the page that I got just because it was affordable. He had some other probably more famous pages, but I was like, this is cool. And it's history, comics history, and it'll go with the rest of my small collection of original art. I was very excited to be able to have a respectful conversation with somebody that I think is pretty important. Oh, it was a joke. Okay. Oh, maybe because I was like, it's not like my thing. Anyway. What else? You know, I don't know if he's still in here, but my friend Dave from West Coast Avengers went to, I think he went for 2 days to the local Comic-Con. and he made a video anyway that's on his channel, West Coast Avengers, and I think it's worth watching. He has something that I heard from a lot of people. May have seen myself, but may not have. Where the local Comic-Con, Emerald City Comic-Con, it might as well have been called PrintCon. And I'm not even exaggerating, folks. Out of Artist Alley, I think more than 90%, somewhere close to 90% anyway, was prints. Not comic book creators, prints. And look, more power to them. I don't even mind, like a convention having some of that. But boy, does it burn me out when it's the only thing there. It's just not cool. What are we doing here? Like, if you want to have an arts and crafts con, have an arts and crafts con. That's fine. But if you have something with the name Comic-Con in it, I think it should have a number of comic creators. They don't all even have to be famous. Let me see some up-and-comers, some emerging talent. I love that stuff. I love exploring Artist Alley. And the crazy thing is, I went to this year's New York Comic-Con, and I had a wonderful experience, to be honest. I thought that's also run by the same people, Reed Pop. That was such a good Artist Alley at New York. Wide open aisles so that you're not super crowded. Wide open, humongous space, tons of comics. So how does the same organization not manage to do it for a city like, you're like, okay, well, not every city is New York. Fair, but the Pacific Northwest has a pretty high density of comic book stores and comic book creators. I think that's what somebody was referring to. Chrissy's saying, one of our first trips to Japan, I was trying to order water, and I didn't know the phrase. I only knew words. So I said it in a very awkward way. I think I tried saying, can I have a glass of water? All you'd honestly say, because Japanese is very high context. If you just say, Mizu kudasai, water please, that's all you need to do. And I think the word for glass is ipai, if I'm remembering right. But that's what I was saying, because I knew like just the vocabulary. But I didn't pronounce it right. We were at a restaurant and I said something like opai. I know I said opai because our waiter chuckled. He was like, and you could tell he was trying not to. And I looked it up later, and opai is crude slang for tits. So I was like, can I have some tits? Not cool. As soon as I said it, I realized I hadn't said the right thing. And when he laughed like that, I made a mental note of like what I'd said so that I could look it up later. And Chrissy and I looked it up in a translation app and saw that I'd asked for some tits, which is just so rude. I think the guy knew what I was getting at somehow from other context, but it was pretty funny because they'll be so polite to you and they'll let you struggle and not like try to correct you or make you feel bad. But it was funny seeing his reaction. Stupid. We've had some good trips and good experiences there. That's for sure. That's how I got it. I let me look up. I wonder if cup or glass is ipai, if I'm remembering that right or not, because I swear I was trying to say ipai. Let me just see what that would mean. Hold on. It says ipai would mean full. It was like asking for a full glass of water or something stupid like that. I was really struggling. No, we were at more of like a German themed restaurant. It was so dumb. It was embarrassing. Anyway, what else? So yeah, like I would recommend though going to West Coast Avengers and hearing Dave talk about the problems with this year's Emerald City Comic-Con. I was pretty disappointed. I feel like it's becoming more and more common for a lot of conventions to start off as a Comic-Con and merge into basically just this generic pop culture con, which is like, what are we doing here? Like, you know, if you want to have a pop culture con, I guess fine, but it's not a Comic-Con anymore. I don't think we should settle for it. I don't have any plans on being at C2E2, so I'm not sure if you were joking or if you're serious about something like that. Oh, maybe you were talking to somebody else. Maybe you were talking to somebody else, weren't you? I'm being too self-centered. That's what it is. I'm a comic novice. Can you explain how creative teams, writer, inker, colorist are put together for a comic book or series? Is it different for Marvel and DC versus independents? Oh, yes. Very different. Look, the central idea for like what a book is going to be can come from different places. If it's coming from a big publisher, that might be an editor saying like, look, we want to do a book about, and I'll just keep it easy, about Batman. And they might ask for pitches from some established people or some up and coming people. And then they might say like, here, you know, there's this artist that I'm thinking might be right for it. Or it might be an established writer or artist coming to the publisher saying like, I've got this idea that I want to do. And I've even been talking to like, you know, this team and, you know, so it could come a couple different ways. But I would say that generally, if you've got a creator-owned idea, no matter where it's happening and what the deal is, that's definitely going to be something that either the writer, artist, or writer and artist are putting together, and definitely have the responsibility of, you know, finding a letterer or an inker or a colorist. And certain publishers may be equipped to help you find some of those supporting roles. But if you're pitching something to Image, they expect you to have the full creative team. Okay. They're looking for a full pitch. They're not looking to necessarily complete it with you. But it might be a little different at a big publisher where they're putting some of the people in touch. So good question. But it can come a lot of different ways. I did see the trailer for Lanterns. I'm intrigued. I don't think I had a negative reaction like a few people like that were saying like, there's hardly any special effects in this. I'm like, well, first of all, they're probably going to hold back some of that. But second, they did say from the beginning that it was meant to be more of like treating them as cops investigating an earthbound mystery. I think that there'll still be some special effects, but also like the idea that they were like, there's hardly any green in Hal Jordan's outfit that's hanging up in a closet. I'm like, yeah, I think that is 100% the point. It's like a really old outfit that he hasn't probably worn much for some reason or other, and it's faded to like almost brown. I think that's 100% intentional, not like a miss. Anyway, we'll see. Look, I think that the casting is really good. I think Kyle Chandler and Aaron Pierre are great casting. As for what the story will be, you know, I don't know. I'll wait and see. Trying to be cautiously optimistic. Don't super care one way or the other. I hope it's good is all I can say. Yeah. I wouldn't mind the idea of starting Green Lantern more modestly by showing them, you know, investigate something that obviously has some sort of alien problem to it, but that, like, is very much on Earth, because Green Lantern has so many working elements to it. The way that it's like, there's space cops, and there's tons of them out there, and they've got a planet with the Guardians to give them jobs, but they're each responsible for patrolling their own sector. That's so many different working parts to try to represent in a story. It's a big concept. And I think the TV would suit it better generally than a movie. The Ryan Reynolds movie tried to explain a bunch of the different aspects, and it was just like a mess. And I don't 100% blame it, because it's just so much to explain. Yeah, there's a lot to Green Lantern. We'll see. It could be one that we'd review someday on the channel. What else was I going to talk about tonight? I'm trying to think. This wasn't quite enough for me to understand to like make it a full like news article earlier in the show, but there's a French comic book artist and writer who, I guess, pitched a book to a publisher in like 2019. The contracts were finalized around 2024. He made it, and it finally came out. And it has a name to the comics, something like L'Académie Claire Obscure. Fine. It's a story that is about magicians and such, okay? Well, there's a French video game company that has the word like Claire Obscure, like Mission 33, something close to that. And it's just a role-playing game. It's not about magicians in a school and stuff like that. But because the name overlapped, they sent a cease and desist letter to this artist for using a piece of that phrase. And he's like, I've been working on this, for like over 5 years. And all of a sudden they're telling me that I don't have the right to use this phrase. And it's like, not like anybody's going to confuse us because we're such different things. It looked really frustrating. But supposedly just today, the writer and artist of the comic said that because it was sort of being talked about on social media, the game publisher, the French company that publishes the game, did reach out to him, and they're trying to find a way to amicably resolve it. So I hope that happens. It felt like it was an incomplete story, to be honest. Out of what I had, I was like, well, we haven't quite reached closure or like, a big fight or anything. There's just little tidbits to this story. So I didn't quite put it in there, but I wanted to mention it. It's worth looking into. Oh, that's not something. The game studio got caught using AI for their art or something. I don't know anything about that. If that's one that like I didn't think to like pre-order, but if it's at the store, I'll probably pick up Usagi Kaito 84, whatever it's called. Yeah. No, just trying to draw more of a werewolf character. I'm trying to imagine like the kind of werewolf I might want to have in the comic that I wrote. Like I want them to be kind of big. I want them to be pretty big. And I don't want them to just be like running around on all fours like a dog, like in say American Werewolf in London or something. I want them to be mostly bipedal. But I don't know 100%. So I'm just sort of playing around with the design here and seeing what feels right. I'm just playing with the design here for fun. Because like I say, I've got this werewolf story, and I just feel like there aren't that many good werewolf stories out there, but it's kind of an interesting monster to play with. And I'd really like to make some comics. I think that this would be a pretty easy one to, put out because it's not like competing too hard against anything that's already out there. I don't know. Just something I'm thinking about. What else did I want to talk about? In terms of like what's out there and what I've been like seeing and watching, my friend goes like, "You want to go out and see The Bride tonight?" I go, "Sure." I like horror movies or just going to the movie. We both have that AMC pass, so it doesn't really cost us anything to go see a movie. I was like, "Yeah, I could fit that in." It was good, not excellent or anything. It was kind of weird, to be honest. I think the performances by both Christian Bale and this girl Jessie Buckley that plays the bride are really good performances. I think this story is like just overly ambitious with what it wants to do, because I guess it's Maggie Gyllenhaal's first time directing a movie and she wrote it too. So I think that she wanted to do I think she had too many ideas to it. And she's trying to do too much with it. It's not bad. It's also not great. It's pretty weird and messy. It's got good ideas to it, but I can't give it a super strong recommendation. Yeah. So I happen to see it. It's okay. But it's weird. But I did like quite a bit of it anyway. I really liked the idea. I liked Annette Bening in it. She plays like a scientist. Annette Bening was really interesting in it. The characters are all legit interesting, and their performances are all legit interesting. But the story itself like has some weird meta aspects to it that don't always feel organic or anything. I was imagining it without a tail, maybe just like a nub. Yeah, I imagine him having sort of those, like, I don't know. There's certain animals that have these legs. What are they called? Like where the knee is almost reversed and then like the feet are really long. I don't know what the name for any of that is. I should probably learn that at some point. Anyway, saw that. I don't know if I've seen much else. I watched another episode, second to last episode of Fallout. And it's pretty good. Fallout's pretty good. Does an artist have the ability to veto an editor's choice of inker and or colorist? I mean, ultimately, they've got like the biggest veto in that they could walk away, right? Like even if there's a contract, so they've got a certain amount of veto, but every contract's going to be different. Everything's going to have a different amount of bargaining power. I would say we are in an era where a dedicated inker is a dying career. There's not too many full-time professional inkers out there. A lot of artists are inking their own work these days, whether that's digital or on the page. I cannot think of like a famous inker who's working full-time in that role anymore. The days of like Tom Palmer and Klaus Janson and stuff, like I can't think of somebody like that. I don't mean reversed, but it's almost like their heel goes way back, and then like, you've got like a normal knee, but then like the foot almost sort of starts here and then like has another joint almost. I don't know how to describe it, but thank you. Well, anyway, what time is it? It's only 7. I keep thinking it's later than it is because we're still dealing with daylight savings. So I actually had my show ready, honestly, almost an hour early, just because I got right to it. And I was like, okay, well, like, do I have any time before I go live? And I go, oh, got about an hour before I go live. Oh, that's cool. Joe Dent says, my friend Walden Wong is a full-time inker, Marvel, DC. He's amazing. That's really cool. I don't think that there's tons of inkers anymore is all. Yeah, the hawks are more dog-like than a human ankle. Thank you. That is what I'm going for, since a werewolf, should be partial dog, partial man. Yeah. But I want them to be sort of bigger than just like a human. I want them to like grow to maybe we'll say 7 feet tall type thing, something weird like that. Not like monstrous, like 10 feet tall, but taller than the average person, towering over you. That's kind of what I like. I like the idea of, it being something that would stand upright, and it would just be scary because, like, it would have dog-like, strength and speed and savagery, the savagery. No, I only watched the premiere of The Beauty, and it was interesting. It was pretty different from the comic, so I'll get back to it at some point, but I want to finish one more episode of Fallout. I'm watching The Pit with Chrissy. I'm watching Starfleet Academy. That's, for me, that's a lot. If I can finish those shows, I want to check out the Dunk and Egg show on HBO. What do they call it? Like Night of the Seven Kingdoms, I think they call it. Never even heard of that. Good comedy and have Disney Plus. I recommend an older UK series called Dead Pixels. It's interesting. And my sister explains dogs walk on their toes, not unlike us on our whole foot. Thank you. Maybe you can be my consultant, Gene, to like give my werewolf characters a few dog-like bits to how they act. Maybe I'll hire you as a consultant, my dog consultant. I just keep putting it off because I'm so sort of shy about asking an artist if it's something they want to do, and I'm not afraid of the rejection part of it. So I really just need to see if some of the people that I've got in mind might want to do it. We'll see. It's easy to put stuff off when you're super, super busy. I'll say that. And I am busy. I know what to also mention. Comic tropes. I'm making a Golden Age episode because I found episodes with monsters. That's why I'm drawing a werewolf. I almost forgot. But I am having Golden Age superheroes versus vampires, werewolves, zombies, and a Frankenstein monster type thing. So 4 different monsters, just looking at how Golden Age comics treated them. I think that could be, I found some specific ones, and I think it should be fun. So that's what's coming up next. And then I'll do some focused on some artists and stuff. Before Supergirl comes out, I'm going to talk, I think, about the coloring on Bilquis Evely's work in Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. I'm going to talk about the colors specifically. I'm going to make an episode about some weird Archie comics before Oni launches their Archie era. I'm going to talk about some artists that I really like Doug Mahnke. Oh, and I really want to do one about David Mazzucchelli, specifically with Batman Year One. Everybody's talking about Batman Dark Knight this year because it's the anniversary. But for me, Frank Miller did Batman best with Batman Year One. That's my favorite. Gene, that's a crazy story. Good Lord. What kind of a dog does your friend have that killed a coyote? That is wild. I'll probably wrap the show up in just a little bit, but thanks for staying with me while I drew and just talked about all sorts of different little things, as well as bearing with me as I got a little bit of the idea of doing an opening monologue out of my system. It's just something I felt like I wanted to try tonight. I can't speak to the quality of the jokes necessarily because I did sort of come up with that idea last minute, but I had fun doing it. So I got to do things that entertain me. I do this show to keep my love of comics high. And so it's very much always going to be a show about what I love and am interested by. But I always appreciate all of your support. It means everything to me. Just know that there's some cool comic trope stuff coming real soon. Pitbull. Okay. That's a tough dog. Wow. First time finding you. Love the hands. Oh, that's nice of you. Boy, I didn't even necessarily think it was all that strong, but I really appreciate that because, of course, it's something I always try to focus on. You're the best. Thanks. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, everybody, for the comments and contributions tonight. Show is better for having such an engaged audience, in my opinion. And I'm looking forward to what we've got coming up in comics to talk about. I'm really impressed with a lot of what DC is doing. I'm impressed with some of what I'm seeing at places like Vault and Oni these days. A little concerned about Dark Horse with the news this week, but we'll see. I want it to be strong. Which werewolf would win? Benicio del Toro or Big B Wolf? I'll definitely give it to Big B Wolf. Classic. Yeah. I hope that this image was sharp tonight, like that the autofocus wasn't too bad. Ha! Yes. Mike Manhattan. I do remember Cursed, and that movie is pretty terrible. That is a bad movie, but funny bad. Like it just went off the rails. Yeah. That could be one that I'd make Jim Mafood watch someday for Trash Movie Bonanza. That could be kind of funny. I'm just looking around, making sure I hit every bit of a topic that I had in mind for this week. And I think so. So, yeah, I'm curious, what you guys are reading. What's on people's mind. But it's been a good week. It's been a damn good week. American Werewolf in London. I admire for the effects. I make people like Matt. I don't love that movie. I love the effects. I think that the story is kind of inert. I think that the main character is incredibly passive and just things happen to him for a while until it just ends. I don't find him very proactive or interesting. Probably my favorite werewolf movie is Dog Soldiers by Neil Marshall. I think it's Neil Marshall, if I'm remembering right. The first Howling's kind of interesting. The Wolf Man is interesting. Ginger Snaps, the first one, is interesting. There's not a lot of good werewolf movies, not compared to like vampire movies or even zombie movies. I don't think that there's many good werewolf stories. So I think I've got like a different angle on one that combines it with a different type of genre. So, yeah. All right, guys, I'm going to take off. Is there anything else? I don't think so. Just, I know what I'm going to say. Keep reading comics. Double salute. Thanks, everybody. Bye.